Hello and welcome back to the Darkest Dungeon mod spotlight. Today we will be taking a look at the Abysswalker created by Caedwyn. Abysswalkers are knights who follow the precedents set by Wolf Knight Artorias, help the spread of evil through any sacrifice. Unmatched with greatswords, these legendary knights confront monsters and provinces reminiscent of the Abyss. Their exposure to the Abyss corrupts their minds, affecting their demeanor and fighting style. Elegant swordsmen, raging berserkers, the line blurs depending on the severity of their corruption. Inspired by Artorias the Abysswalker from Dark Souls, this mod is one of several heroes made to bring Dark Souls to Darkest Dungeon. Dark Souls is beloved by its fans, so it's no surprise they would want to play as the major characters from the game. The Abysswalker is a frontline warrior with versatile attacks, powerful control, and good damage. Additionally, he benefits from special buffs that make him more powerful in low light and while highly stressed. The Abysswalker class also has several synergies with the Lord Blade class, also by Caedwyn. I will be talking about the Lord Blade class in a separate video paired with this one. Now, to begin to understand the Abysswalker as a class, let's take a look at his stats. Above average, he has max HP, damage, stun resistance, blight resistance, disease resistance, move resistance, and bleed resistance. His speed, his dodge, his crit, his debuff resistance, and his trap disarm are all average. And he really doesn't have any weaknesses. All of his stats are just great. The only caveat to this, as you might notice, he has a lot of skills up here, which I'll talk about specifically. But as a side effect of having 8 skills, he can't move during combat because the move button is covered up. So, you can't just like pass your turn. However, well, I mean, you can pass by hitting the X, but you get stressed, but you can't pass by moving. However, a lot of his moves move him forward or back, so it usually doesn't feel like that big of a deal. Additionally, if he's at high stress, which I'll get more into that, he does get increased stress taken, so he does have a bit of a weakness in that too, where you have to be careful not to let him get up to heart attack level. So, much like the Abomination, the Abysswalker class is a modal fighter. When he is in the pure mode, he has access to these 4 skills, and when he is in his corrupted form, after using Abyssal Imbuement, he has access to these 4 skills. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Since he has 8 skills, it just bumps this one down here. He can use Abyssal Imbuement whenever he wants, and it doesn't end his turn. So he can just kind of switch back and forth freely to use whatever set of skills he wants. This makes him pretty versatile. He has access to a wide variety of targeting options and utility effects. I guess the only catch with this is that he only has one ability that targets the back row, and he has to be positioned a certain way to use it. Alright, time for a marathon of skills. The Abysswalker's first skill in pure mode is Dark Wraith's Bane. He can use it from positions 1 to 2, to positions 1 to 2 of the enemy team, much like the Crusader's Smite. It has a no damage modifier, pretty good crit. It has +5 accuracy if you are afflicted, and when you use it, you lose 4 stress. This is a pretty basic ability for pure mode, just to help relieve some stress, because you're going to need it. The increased accuracy while afflicted helps it be a little more reliable at reducing stress when you need to. The Abysswalker's second ability is Loyalty. This is his guard ability. He can use it from any position to guard any ally for 2 turns. He buffs his protection by 10 to 30%. He marks himself for 4 turns. Heals the ally he guards stress for 6 to 10 points. He heals his own stress by 6, doubling the amount of self-stress heal if he is above 125 stress. If his ally is the Lord Blade class, buff their virtue chance upon getting 100 stress by 15%, and buff their damage by 15% for 3 turns.
The abyss must be stopped.
The Abysswalker's third pure form ability is Swordsman's Gambit. It can be used from positions 1 and 2 to hit the positions 1 and 2 of the enemy team. It has a damage penalty of 60%, but it has a pretty good crit modifier. When he uses it, he moves back 2 spaces, stuns the enemy at 100 to a 140% chance, and knocks them back 2 with a 100 to 140% chance. And additionally, he heals himself for 4 stress. So this is a good way to shuffle your party around. Maybe you want him to retreat a little, recover some stress, and you can stun and mess up the enemy ordering at the same time. And finally, the Abysswalker's last pure form ability is Gliding Thrust. He can use it from positions 3 and 4 to attack positions 1, 2, or 3 on the enemy team. This has a no damage modifier, and it also has a good crit modifier, much like most of his other abilities. It moves him forward 2, so maybe you want to use it after using Swordsman's Gambit to bring you back to the front, or if you get shuffled. It's very good at getting you back to where you need to be. It reduces your stress by 4, like 2 of his other pure form abilities, and it debuffs your target with 100 to 140% chance, lowering their protection by 10 to 20%. So it's not a very complicated ability, but it's mainly used to reposition yourself, and maybe you can knock a little protection off of a highly defended target at the same time. If you happen to have the Abysswalker in corrupted mode, you have access to 4 different skills, which are much more offensively oriented, and most of them grant stress, so you need to balance the stress heal of his pure form abilities with the stress gain of his corrupted form abilities. And his first ability is Savage Leap, which he can use from positions 3 and 4 to hit any position on the enemy team. It has no damage modifier and good crit. It also gains 15% damage if the Abysswalker is afflicted, and another 15% damage if the target is marked. When he uses it, he gains 7 stress. This is a pretty powerful ability to help bring you back to the front and just blast an enemy at the same time. It felt pretty satisfying to use every time, and I like the animation.
Annihilated.
The Abysswalker's second corrupted form ability is Hurricane Swing. He must be in positions 1 and 2, and can attack positions 2 and 3 on the enemy team, hitting both of them. Hurricane Swing has a penalty of 50% to its damage. When he uses it, he moves back 1 and gains 7 stress. Additionally, it has a 100 to 140% chance of shuffling the entire enemy party. It clears corpses, and it has a 0 to 40% chance of stun, with 100% increased stun chance if the Abysswalker is afflicted. So, if you're afflicted, this can be a great way to do a good chunk of damage and really cause some havoc in the enemy team. You can bring the back line forward, send the front line back, and stun a couple of the enemies all at the same time. And being able to clear corpses means maybe if someone else killed an enemy first, then you can help ensure that the enemies are as far forward as possible. Abysswalker's 7th skill is Gliding Slash. He can use it from positions 1 and 2 to hit positions 1, 2, or 3 on the enemy team. It has a heavy damage penalty of 90%. It moves you back 2 spaces and activates Riposte. The Abysswalker's Riposte has a damage penalty of 40%. Additionally, it marks himself for 4 turns, so you can more reliably have enemies attack him, especially if you know which enemies are drawn to marks, especially. He buffs his dodge by 4 to 20, and he gets 10 additional dodge if he is afflicted. Notably, Gliding Slash is the only one out of his corrupted form abilities that does not give him stress. When he uses it, his target also has a chance to bleed 100 to 140% chance for 1 to 2 points for 4 to 6 rounds. It's not a huge bleed, but it's long lasting, and its intent is to help combo with the Lord Blade class, which benefits from that bleed on the enemy. Yeah, teamwork. Additionally, he has 25% higher bleed chance if he is afflicted. Alright, one more. I can do this. His final corrupted form ability is Savage Strike. He can use this from positions 2 and 3 on his team to hit positions 1 and 2 of the enemy team. It moves him forward 1, so it can help you get back to the front of the party. It has no damage modifier and good crit. And the only real special thing about it is that it has 20 to 40% armor penetration if the Abysswalker is afflicted. And, of course, like most corrupted form abilities, he gains 7 stress when he uses it. So this is a pretty simple corrupted form ability, just to get you back in possession, and the extra armor piercing is nice to break through those high protection targets. Now, let's go through the Abysswalker's camping skills. His first one is Abysswalker. For 4 time points, he relieves himself of 40 stress. Very simple and effective if the Abysswalker is getting dangerously close to having a heart attack. Abysswalker is a quick way to dump a lot of stress and bring him back down to a more comfortable level. But it is 4 time points to just remove stress from your Abysswalker. Maybe you want to spend your time points elsewhere. You can be the judge of it. His next camping skill is Memories of Better Days. For 3 time points, the Abysswalker buffs himself to take 40% less stress for 4 battles. This can be a good way if you think you're going to be taking a lot of stress. You can prevent that ahead of time by camping and using this, and then you don't have to spend as much time in pure mode relieving stress. You can focus on corrupted and using those powerful skills. Additionally, when he uses this, he targets a companion. If that companion is a Lord's Blade, they gain 35% virtue chance until the next time they camp. I know it says versus Lord's Blade, but I think that's just kind of a quirk of the way the buffs are set up. So 35% virtue chance is pretty good. The Abysswalker sure as hell isn't gonna get virtued, so maybe the Lord's Blade can. His next camping skill is Divine Blessing. Just like the item in Dark Souls, it heals you for 100%, removes blight and bleeding. Very thematic. It could be useful. If he's hurting, you can heal yourself back up. It costs 3 time points, which, I would hope it'd be a little better, but maybe it could save your butt when you're in some trouble. And his last camping skill is Embrace the Abyss. For 3 time points, the Abysswalker gains 30 stress, but you prevent nighttime ambush. I think this is decent, It's a fairly cheap nighttime ambush prevention at 3 time points. 30 stress isn't something that the Abysswalker can't deal with. Just be careful that you're not too close to heart attack. I used this when I was low on stress. I was at like 60 stress, so I was able to prevent nighttime ambush and bring myself back up to around 100 stress, and save myself a resting point that I would have used preventing nighttime ambush with someone else's skill. Now, there is a bunch of information we need to go through to help round out our understanding of the Abysswalker. He benefits from 2 districts, both the Training Ring and the Outsider's Bonfire, so you can get some extra resting points. When he gets a critical hit, he gets a buff that makes him do 15% increased damage, but only if his stress is above 75. And speaking of stress, you may have noticed that he has a certain special affliction called Heroic Struggle. Indeed, whenever the Abysswalker hits 100 stress, he always becomes afflicted, and he always gets heroic struggle. This is unique to the Abysswalker. It comes with a number of buffs and penalties based on the light level and his stress, and we're going to go through every one of them. So, if his stress is above 75, he gains 5% damage. If his stress is above 100, he gains another 10% damage. If his stress is above 125, he gains another 15% damage. If his stress is above 150, he gains another 20% damage. And if his stress is above 175, he gains another 25% damage. It's a lot of damage. But it is pretty risky staying at high stress because it's very easy to accumulate 50 stress in no time. Just taking a bad goblet of wine to the face and someone gets crit and boom, you'll be in heart attack range. So I found myself trying to stay between 100 and 125. But your tolerance can be, how much risk do you want to take on? Additionally, while in heroic struggle, he gains 10 protection and 10 dodge below 30 light level. He also gains 20 stress resistance while below 30 light, though keep in mind you already gain increased stress when you're at low light, so it just kind of balances out. While he is afflicted with heroic struggle, he just has a flat 30% increased stress taken. So once he is afflicted, be careful because he will be gaining more stress pretty quickly. So all of his abilities that gain 7 stress here and there, they're going to be gaining like 10 or 11. It depends on your modifiers. If you are in light level below 10, the Abysswalker gains an additional 10 protection and 3 speed, getting even stronger. Oh, and I missed one buff. When he is below 30 light, he also gains 10% damage. So he has a lot of extra power if you want to do low light runs and keep him at high stress. While he is afflicted, however, he does benefit from 50% increased stress healing and an extra 10 accuracy, just flat. So the risks are there, but he does get a lot of power from it. But it's also not without its drawbacks. We need to go through his act outs, because on his turn, he has a chance to randomly act out, just like any other affliction. He has a 27% chance of doing, not passing his turn, but no special action, it's just a normal turn. He has a 9% chance of barking stress at the party. He has a 5% chance to take a random action. He has a 5% chance to attack himself, a 9% chance to mark himself, a 5% chance to stress heal himself for a pretty sizable chunk, a 9% chance to buff one ally, a 9% chance to buff all allies, a 9% chance to heal himself. Overall, that's 27% chance of a neutral outcome, 28% negative, and 45% good. All in all, it's not too bad. Usually you'll be fine, but occasionally he'll attack himself or give your party stress. Usually not a big deal. Additionally, he has about a 10% chance to block effects, items, or for him to comment on hits or misses, people interacting with things, and he might give them stress. It's not too bad, but it's just a little annoyance on top of everything else. So, how did I play the Abysswalker? Well, I immediately wanted to get him into heroic struggle mode. Now, how do you do that? Well, when you bring the Abysswalker into a dungeon, you start with an item called the the Shard of the Abyssal Father. That was it. And it is a consumable item that the Abysswalker can use to gain 120 horror for 1 round, and this is enough that, unless he has a whole bunch of stress resistance, he can immediately get a affliction and go into heroic struggle. I don't see any reason not to use it. I like being in heroic struggle. I think the benefits are pretty good. If you are already afflicted, there's no need to hold on to the shard. You can just toss it and pick up some loot instead. So most of the time I stayed in corrupted mode. Hurricane Swing is a good way to start most fights. Stunning and Shuffling helps give you a good advantage. If you get brought back to the back 2 lines, Savage Leap is a pretty powerful ability with at least a positive 15 damage modifier as long as you're afflicted. And maybe if the target is marked, you can get a little extra out of it as well. Gliding Slash, I didn't find myself using it too much because, yeah, you set up riposte, but it also moves you back 2, and you're not likely to get hit in the back as much. So, you know, it's okay. It depends on the enemies. If the enemies have a lot of AoE abilities, or you think they're going to hit the back lines more, you might get more value out of it. Plus, it has the benefit of bleeding an enemy, which, as I said, the Lord's Blade class can take advantage of. Savage Strike wasn't anything special, but, you know, sometimes you use it to reposition. The pure mode abilities I mostly just use to relieve stress, and occasionally I'd guard someone with loyalty. In conclusion, the Abysswalker is a well-themed and flexible frontliner. In my experience so far, he is quite powerful, capable of doing a good amount of damage, managing his stress, and even keeping stress off his allies with his good crit rate and the loyalty ability. Having access to all 8 attacks at the same time ensures that he will always have something useful to do, and is basically immune to shuffles. With his base stats being so good all around, and he has no apparent weaknesses except perhaps stress itself, as you might imagine, I was happy to get the Steady quirk to help manage his stress even easier. Still, I think this is a great tribute to Artorias the Abysswalker, and really captures the look and feel of the source material. Sound effects are great and help the abilities feel satisfying to use. You know, the Abysswalker wants to raise his stress, increasing his power level, and then transforming into his super form. He's basically a Super Saiyan.